Nick Diaz, suspended for 5 years, fined $165,000. 33% of the UFC 183 purse split. If you guys didn't see the video, I'm gonna put a link in the description of the actual hearing / trial by the Nsac to Nick Diaz. It was a little too harsh. I think even if Nick Diaz had failed 3 times for positive marijuana, I think that 5 years. As a matter of fact, the person that you guys are looking in to the screen, her name is Pat, and she's the chairman of Nsac. She had the first say on what the punishment was going to be, and obviously there's other 3 guys in the panel that whether they agree or disagree. Well, summarize the whole thing. She said that Diaz clearly disregard the rules, regulation, and policy of the Nevada State Athletic Commission and has continuously done so over the past few years, from the first initial charge until now. Now, there's a guy, he's not shown in this picture, but it's all the way to her left, our right. He's got gray hairs already. You guys gonna see it in the video. Like I said, the link is in the description. Check him out. It's by MMA. It is MMA Junkie, I believe. Shout out to MMA Junkie for getting the video. But you know, if you guys look at the comments in that video, you guys will see it's ridiculous. I mean, there's actually a poll on social media that whether people agreed with the decision of the Nevada State Athletic Commission or was it too hard. Now, like I said, there's a guy, an older guy, member of the panel that actually disagreed with her. She looked like a transgender to me, and she's very, very grumpy. She is very dirty and very harsh, you know, known to the fact that there's a lot of people, athletes themselves, that disagrees and oppose the so-called punishment. I mean, MMA fans, fight fans in general, and the athletes themselves clearly disagree. You know, over 90% of the fans disagree with the judgment, but it actually came down to 5-year suspension. Her initial offer and proposed punishment was actually it was a lifetime, I believe. It was, can't believe the terminology that she used, but it was almost indefinite, like lifetime or forever banned, pretty much. And the other guy in the panel said that, you know, he didn't agree with it, and he got all the other 2 guys to agree with him, and she finally agreed to the 5-year sentence. Now, to me, it didn't really matter, because whether it was a lifetime suspension, so to speak, or a 5-year suspension, it doesn't make a difference, because by the time Nick Diaz gets out of the suspension, if he doesn't get an appeal and overturn the ruling, then he'd be 37, 38 years old. I mean, he's not going to be in the same shape. He's going to be past his prime, if not coming to that time already. He's 32, getting ready to turn 33. And yes, I've said it before that nobody put a gun to Nick Diaz's head and, you know, tell him to smoke that pot, not only once but 3 times. But still, marijuana is marijuana. You know, it doesn't make any athletes stronger, more stamina, more endurance to knock out and beat their opponents with no remorse or no chance. It doesn't do that. Marijuana does not do that. So for Silva, as a matter of fact, whom Nick Diaz fought last January, I believe, UFC 183, he actually pissed hot for performance enhancing drugs. And yes, it was his first offense, but that is the biggest no-no as far as the athletic commission, right? Performance enhancing drugs. Marijuana, yes, it's still a drug. It's still illegal. It's illegal. And this chairman of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, name is Pat. She's very grumpy on the video, and clearly, very adamant of her judgment to Nick Diaz. Now, like I said, regardless if Nick Diaz, it's kind of hard to talk about this topic because it's very sensitive. Because some people say on social media that they know where the chairman is coming from. However, to the fans in the eyes of the fight fans and the athletes themselves, they're saying that people have tested positive for steroids and they are not being punished accordingly. And actually, Nick Diaz is being punished worse, like 10 times worse than those guys that had tested positive for performance enhancing drugs, PED. And obviously, Floyd Mayweather's name is being mentioned as as a current controversy of PED use, or IV/PED use, because IV that Mayweather took was 750 milliliters, and enough to mask, flush down, or wash down whatever substance he or he may not took. So, people said that yes, they understood, and I believe the chairman of the Nevada State Athletic Commission understood that the PED used by Silva, just an example, one of the guys that actually pissed hot for PEDs, yes, that was Silva that used the PED and actually proven that he used it. He actually pissed hot, but only was sentenced 1 year. However, he was a first-time offender. Now, whether you're a first-time offender of such substance that you use, number one, number one, banned, then it shouldn't be. Even though, yes, like I said, Nick Diaz is a 3-time offender, it's a marijuana against performance enhancing drugs. So I mean, it's confusing how the Nevada State Athletic Commission it's making all this judgment, and pretty much the judgment to Nick Diaz is to end his career. That's it. If Nick Diaz doesn't appeal it, or he appeals it and loses it, he's done anyway. So obviously he's gonna try to appeal that, but $165,000 off of his $500,000 and 5 years suspension, they might as well have said lifetime, or indefinite, because he's never gonna be the same in 5 years. Do you really think Nick Diaz would maintain his shape and maintain going to the gym, knowing that he already smoked pot? He smokes pot. I mean, he's not gonna do that. He's gonna lose determination and motivation to go to the gym and work out. I mean, it's 5 years. The guy has to find a job. The guy is actually have to make a living somewhere else, right? And what's funny about that also is because not only that it was a 5-year suspension and $165,000 fine, they also saying that there's certain prohibition, such as Nick Diaz can no longer be so many yards, so many miles, I'm not sure, but pretty much I couldn't remember. But like I said, the link is in the video link is in the description. You guys check him out. But from what I understood, Nick Diaz can't even be nowhere around the octagon. So with that said, he probably can't even go to Vegas and watch the fights. You know what I mean? So that's pretty harsh. I believe that's pretty harsh. Like, if I was part of the panel of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, which Nsac, as you guys know, has some issues. People don't necessarily agree with their staff and with their judgment. because they are, I don't know, somewhat ties with USADA, and we have to be honest here and be grown-ups to admit it that NSAC sometimes is unfair. They, for what we're seeing, the trend is like NSAC is favoring fighters that are more pay-per-view sensationals. Now that doesn't have, I don't have any, actual facts on what I just said, but that's what we're seeing. You know what I mean? It's like, for somewhat reason, people that are pay-per-view sensation and known, which should be punished harsher, unlike Nick Diaz, then they get off. They get off easy, They don't get to suffer the lifetime consequences that Nick Diaz is actually facing at the moment. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. There's favoritism there. I don't know. Some people are saying that they're being paid. Nevada State Athletic Commission and USADA actually at the moment is being investigated by FBI, and you guys know what for. I don't have to say it. So in conclusion to all the situation that happened in the hearing, this happened yesterday. If I was part of the panel or the chairman of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, this is what I would impose. This is what I would propose to my panel, and obviously we have to get some kind of unanimous decision, right? So this is what I would impose, right? The 33% cut from the 500,000, I have no problem with. I really didn't have any problem with that. However, on the suspension, 5 years is as good as lifetime because of Nick Diaz's age. So, with that said, I would say community service, right? Certain amount of community service, and a suspension of minimum 1 year up to maximum of 2 years. I think that's reasonable. I understand Nick Diaz smoked the pot not only once, 3 times, because also it says a lot about character. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, Nick Diaz doesn't necessarily have the best character when when it comes to people. People like him because he's ruthless. They talk a lot of crap. But that's not the case here. When you're in front of court and hearing stuff like that, you have to have the image of an angel, even though everybody's that are judging you are all devils themselves. It is the nature of the beast. You have to have the good image. And why do you think certain individual in the sport of boxing, every time they face the Nevada State Athletic Commission for some questions they need to be answering, not only that they don't get sworn in under oath, they dress nice, they shave, presentable, because they can afford lawyers that give them those tips. You gotta dress certain way. We know certain panels like certain colors. You know what I mean? You guys know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? It's not a secret. So like I said, if you've been in courts and stuff like that, you would know that certain individuals, even their judges or their chairmen, they do like certain things, from colors to attitudes to grooming. You know what I'm saying? It tells a lot of the character to them, even though it's not right, but it is what it is. So, like I said, to me, I think just because Nick Diaz have made a mistake and is a 3-time loser, as they call, so to speak, right? In the eyes of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, I think the appropriate punishment is maybe a minimum of 1 year, a maximum of 2 years suspension, right? With a $165,000 fine, and that should be it. Now, if they were to post some kind of community service, then I suggest between a year to a year and a half of suspension, and then a $165,000 fine, giving the boy a chance to regain the trust of the commission, if they're not crooked themselves, and continue his career while he's still young. He's not going to fight any longer anyways. You know what I'm saying? Then if Nick Diaz do the same thing again the fourth time, well, that's on him. That's a different, that's a different story. We're not there yet, but that's what people are already asking on social media. What if, because Nick Diaz already has a history of violating and discrediting or ignoring the rules and regulations. I mean, it's not surprisingly that if Nick Diaz violates those rules again, but the problem at hand is 5 years suspension is good as lifetime suspension. You know what I mean? So that is harsh. And you guys seen the reaction video of Nick Diaz. He's very upset. Called everybody that on steroids, and he's right. He's got points. You know what I'm saying? He might not have necessarily the hard facts, but he is right. You know what I'm saying? You guys know, so does the athletes themselves and the fight world, the fight fans. We know who has been on PEDs and actually never been caught, or who was once on PEDs but actually never tested positive. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, we have all these smart lawyers nowadays, and strength and conditioning coach, so to speak, but in all reality they're just dope dealers. You know what I'm saying? That's what it comes down to. They're the one that advises athletes to shoot up some dope. But I mean, marijuana, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I would, if I was a fighter, whether boxing or MMA, in my opponent, like in a couple days, I'm about to fight in a couple days, and says, you know what, I want to smoke some weed. You know what? Go ahead, man. As long as it's not performance enhancing drug, go ahead. That will weaken you. Matter of fact, I want you to smoke a pound of weed a day or the night before you fight me. I'll knock you out. You know what I mean? So I'm being funny, but the point of the story is that weed doesn't necessarily help, build your stamina, your endurance. You know what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, it hurts you. So I don't know, man. I know illegal is illegal, drugs is drugs, but man, we got a lot of people that are under investigations for PEDs, and just because they have money, I don't know. Can Nevada State Athletic Commission be bought? Who knows? We know damn sure USADA can. So hell, they denied Frank Mir of certain shot, and that dude had ADHD. It was a proven legal shot. And Frank Mir is not the only athlete that's been denied, so to speak, by USADA. And there's certain athletes that USADA just approves, even though approval doesn't come 2 weeks after the original fight. I don't know, man. So it confused a lot of people, and like I said, a lot of people are angry. Matter of fact, on Twitter, people are pulling polls and putting free Nick Diaz hashtags, type of stuff. So I don't know, man. I'm gonna put the link in the description of the trial of you guys. I just gotta warn you that you might be pissed on this video. You might be really angry and mad because this chairman of the commission she's really ruthless. So check out the video. It's about 5-6 minutes video, and you guys let me know what you think. Drop me a comment. As always, thanks for watching. JF Sports.